Hey everybody, welcome to Drawing Animals with Debra Goley, and we're here today, week 2 of a 2-part series. The first part, we worked on any animal, preferably one with short hair, maybe like an African type animal. And today we're going to work on our domestic animals, our furry friends, our pets, and we're just concentrating on the neck up. So we don't at this time want to think about the tail and all the limbs, and that could be another lesson, another time, but we're going to just concentrate on the face and really hone our skills as to value and then adding some texture. So this happens to be one of my students' lovely dogs, and I thought this would be a good pose for us to study today. So you can notice his two eyes then form a triangle with the nose. I'm going to draw this today as a shape drawing. You might want to put your grid paper, the grid that I showed you in lesson 1, over the top, and just concentrate on if the eye falls in grid square number 1, and I have grid square number 1 drawn over here, that's exactly where the eye goes. So if you're a beginning drawing and this would be easier for you, then go with the grid. So check that out. Check out my prior video. It's labeled Animals Oh My, so you should be able to find that on YouTube. And this one's going to be about pets, pet portraits. So we're gonna draw him and then, or her, and then we're going to add some interesting clothing of whatever you would like. We're gonna look at Rembrandt, and you can check out the Google slides too. All right, so here we go. So what I like to start off with is my school pencil. So this happens to be an HB. Some of you might have a 2H, that's fine. As long as it says an H, that means hard. And what I'm going to do is draw a cross across my paper. Da, da, da. Okay, and that way I know exactly where my eyes are going to go, and I can form that triangle. So his eyes are going to be right above this line. So I'm going to have an eye about right here. And I'm just taking my hands and measuring that, and another eye about right here. And if I were to draw a triangle like this, that's where the nose is. So let's just measure that. Guess what? We're in the right spot. So nose is going to go here. Make it a bigger oval. You can see that. Okay. So I've got a triangle going on. And then what I'd like to do is do the triangle in the opposite direction. So because you can see the nose bone and the muzzle right here. So in the opposite direction, I'm going to draw another acute, isn't he cute? Acute triangle, meaning so that angle is very small. It's not obtuse. But it's definitely not an equilateral like we did in the lion last time. Okay, so now I've got the two triangles identified. I'm going to now look at the relationship of the snout to the eyes, from eyes to forehead. So I see this as being correct. I see this as being correct. What is that? Well, I can take my fingers and pinpoint it, because it's definitely not going to match this triangle here. I can't reverse the triangle. It would be too tall for his forehead, like we did on the lion. All right, if this sounds crazy, go back and review those first few videos, or video of animals. Who knows, by the time this airs, maybe there'll be another video that I've released. So I'm working on trying to get a lot of my lesson plans out there for the public viewing, and I appreciate any and all donations for all of this as a working artist. I started getting all this together during the pandemic, because normally I teach in person, and I'm just allowing myself to stay fresh and bring you some ideas not only to do in your spare time, but maybe you'll join me when all this is over. and in person or have a one-on-one session with me. We can still meet on Zoom. We can still enjoy our time together, however that looks. Okay, so he's got this floppy ear that's outside the frame. So I'm going to go ahead and block that in. You're blocking in all of the features of this creature. I've got a wider area here because he's actually looking to the side. It's easier with a portrait if they're looking head on. It's harder, I feel, to do the side. Some people say it's harder to look straight on because then you have to get everything symmetrical. Okay, so the ears are going to be in about the same spot. And I know this is a challenge. I know that doing animals is not something you start off doing. Good news is they can't talk back to you and say, hey, that doesn't look like me. Whereas if you're doing people, I find that more difficult because they will pick on everything. In fact, oh, Mr. Rembrandt. So I have a silly story. He was around during the 1600s. He's considered one of the premier, if not the finest realist painter, oil painter there is, but he did other things too, etchings. He was doing some portraits for a very aristocratic family and during the Dutch Renaissance. And anyway, his dog Puck died. And I don't know that Puck looked like this. In fact, we don't really know what Puck looks like. There's no record in his painting, but he, during the process of him documenting and painting this family, he lost his dog and he painted Puck into the family portrait. Needless to say, the family was not very happy about that and asked him to remove it, to paint over it, and of course Rembrandt didn't do that. So I don't know where this painting is today. This came from a source of a gentleman who writes about documentaries about biographies about famous artists. So look at that teardrop shape right there. So I think what's nice about portraits in general is they do document a time and a place in our history. And that's why if you could afford it, you would have yourself drawn. There wasn't the invention of camera yet. And you would pay an artist to paint you, your family, and maybe even your pet. Nowadays we have a camera. We have a camera in our hand all the time. We're taking pictures of things. I don't think we stop much and really study a person anymore. And so that's what's really nice about taking your time and doing a drawing, because you're really going to focus on it more. So now I have his face blocked out. I'm going to go ahead and start adding value with a 4B. So the pencils are marked and they have a number and a letter. If it says B, obviously it's not an H. It's not hard, but it's black. B for black, which means it's soft. The higher the number, the softer the pencil. So I'm going to be working today with a 4, a 6, and an 8B in that order. The higher the number, the darker it's going to get. So I printed out this dog. He's brown, really, and brown and tan. I printed him in black and white because it's easier for me to see the values, and it might be easier for you as well. I could have also taken some pieces of paper like I did here, and I laid it over the top so I could just block out his chest and anything else in the background that was causing me distraction. So if you need to do that, just take 2 pieces of paper. I made 2 L's and I put tape on the ends right here, and I just laid it over it so that I could block him, so I didn't have to see all those other things. So then what I'm going to do is take my 4 and I'm going to begin shading. This is called shading. I'm going to be going in a circle. There's different styles of shading. You could use hatch marks, where your lines are close together, or something's really dark, or they're further apart, if something is really light. You could do dots, like the pointillism. But I'm just going to go in a circle, and I'm going to blend this eventually. Or you could have left it scribble like this. And it's going to take me a while, of course, to get all of this on here. But once you get the value on there, don't worry about hair at this point. I think that's the main thing I stress the most, only because we all tend to need to hear it more than once. You do not want to spend time drawing little hairs right now. We want to get all these lights, medium light, medium dark, and dark value. Value is how dark and light something is. I have to have all this on there, or I have nothing to erase to get a really light area. So I'm going to go ahead and put some graphite on the paper. Now I can use a blending stick to blend it, otherwise known as a tortillon. Notice I didn't do it all over the nose. I'm moving the graphite around onto the paper. I can also use a tissue to smudge, or my finger. I don't like to use my finger only because I might have oil on my hand, so it's best to rub that. Okay, there's a lot of shade around his eyes, and so forth and so on. And his ears. No, I'm not going to worry about his chest and everything, because we're going to do something fun there. In fact, those ears, I might go ahead and switch to a 6, because I know it's going to be darker anyway. Already, look how dark. Same amount of pressure by my hand, but it's already darker just by switching to a 6. I don't even have to make my circles tighter together. I could do an 8 inside this area. Whoops, I went outside. That's fine. You can color outside the lines. But you gotta have value on the paper before you do hair. Like putting the primer coat on your wall before you do the final coat. And believe me, if you're painting a red wall, you definitely want to put a primer that's gray or tinted a darker color, because you'll have to do lots of coats of red to get it to have good coverage. Okay, so you get kind of where I'm going with this. So I could use the stick, or in this big broad area like a ear. All I have to do is make a ghost with my finger and smudge that around. Now I still might have to come back and add more graphite, because I didn't get it quite dark enough the first time. So I've also got a piece of sandpaper here, and I'm going to sand my stick because it can get very dull. Graphite is a rock. Well, that didn't sound very good on my fingernail. You can also use just some sandpaper out of the garage. I'm going at an angle because I want to have a point. I'm gonna get tighter right here next to the face. It's like the underside of the ear. And I have a kneadable eraser and a white eraser here. I've got a couple of marks inside the eye that I want to get rid of right away. I'm going to go ahead and circle where the white of the eye is because I don't want to have to try to come back and erase that tiny little point. So I'm just going to preserve it. going to come back and just keep adding more black using my 8B. Take some patience. I know I'm going very quickly, and if I'm speeding up the video, it's going to look like I did this really fast. Well, it'll take you about an hour to get the dog in there, and then we're going to add the fun clothes. Some brands of pencils have a darker presence with their 8 than others, so you'll get to play with your pencils if you have choices in different brands, and you might like one over the other. Okay, I'm still working on value. Should be a lot darker in here. This is how Rembrandt would do it. Of course, he's using oil paints. We're using graphite today. Okay, so here we go. Let's make this a bit darker on the ear. Okay, so once you feel like you've kind of gotten an overall view, you can always keep going and adding more, and we will as we add the hair to it. I'm going to block in the neck or clothes. I found this interesting picture, oil painting of this cat with some Shakespearean clothes on. So I think I'm just going to add some clothes to him. And I thought it would be fun to block it in and be whimsical about it and something unusual or unexpected, right? So we know that his neck is pretty broad. There's his neckline right there. And I'm just gonna block in this Shakespearean outfit. It's got lots of curves, and I thought the curves go really well with his floppy ears. This particular outfit has what looks like velvet and some upholstery fabric. I'm not going to be able to see the whole outfit here, so I'm just going to do a little bit of it. It's got a little necklace going on here. It's great to add whimsy to your art. You know, the unexpected. It's going to set you apart. There's a big area for the paw. Well, I guess the paw is actually lower down here. Still more shoulder there. Kind of looks like a beef eater, doesn't he, from London? Guarding the Tower of London. Bet there's nobody there during this pandemic. Except those crows. And this is just a big sleeve, and this is his cape over his back, over here. And when I squint, that red's a little bit darker than that red-orange. So, I can do the same thing now. I can start putting in some 4B. And this is where I'm just going to go for all the value parts, and then I'll come back and add all those textures. We haven't done any texturing yet. I'm not even going to worry with the rope design or anything else like that yet. We'll just about have all the value put on there. Well, except for the hat. Be nice to put a big old hat on that big forehead, huh? Okay, so we'll take a little break and come right back, add the hat, add some texture to all that velvet and the feathers in his cap. All right, see you back.